Now in the previous lecture, we have discussed top-down approach using memoization. Now in case of top-down approach, first we divide the problem into sub-problems and then we solve these problems and combine them together. Now in this lecture, we will learn another approach which is bottom-up approach with tabulation. In this case, we do the opposite, which means we start from the smaller problem and we slowly inch towards the bigger problem. As I said, tabulation is opposite of top-down approach and avoids recursion. In this approach, we solve problem bottom-up, i.e. by solving all related subproblems first. This is typically done by filling up a temporary table. Based on the result in the table, the solution to the top original problem is then computed. So we know that tabulation is opposite of memoization, but as in memoization, we solve the problem and maintain a map of already solved subproblems. In other words, in memoization, we do it top-down in the sense that we solve top problems first, then we continue to the subproblems. Now to make things more clear, let's see a Fibonacci example that we have solved using top-down approach. Now in the previous lecture, we have learned how temporary array gets filled when we apply top-down approach for Fibonacci series. Now it looks like this. So here you see that we have started from the big problem and we continue to the subproblem and subproblem and subproblem. Then when we reach the last subproblem, we start to solve subproblems and come back to the big problem. So that's how the temporary table looks like in case of top-down approach. Now let's see the same table in case of bottom-up approach. Now in this case, table starts from the subproblem. So as you see, our subproblems F1 and F2 are already solved. So these are default solutions that are provided by the problem statement. Then the last subproblem is F3. So first we are calculating F3 based on F1 and F2. So our result is 1. Then we are continuing to do F4 and based on F3 and F2 we are calculating F4. So based on F2 and F3 the result of F4 is 2. Then we are continuing F5. So F5 should be calculated based on F3 and F4. So the result will be 3. Then we are continuing to the final solution which is F6. So F6 is calculated based on F4 and F5. So we know the answers of F4 and F5 and we have saved them in this array over here. So the result will be 5. So as you see, in case of bottom up with tabulation, we find the smallest problems, then we continue to the bigger problem. Now here you need to take into account that we are avoiding recursion. So when we avoid the recursion, the time complexity improves efficiently. Now based on this logic, let's see the algorithm of bottom up approach looks like. Now the algorithm will be like this. So here you can easily see that we are avoiding the recursion over here. We have just created a temporary table and inserted first two values over here. Now based on the n that we provided over here, we are calculating the values and inserting to this table. Then we are returning the value of this. So here we have put n-1 because the index starts from the 0. That's why we need to return n-1 index. Now based on this, let's see how this is working in Java. Now here we are going to create a method which calculates Fibonacci series using tabulation approach. Now as you remember, in our previous lecture we have created another method over here which calculates Fibonacci series using memoization. Now here we are going to implement same method using tabulation approach. So here it's different from the memoization because in this case our method will take only one parameter, which is the number that we are going to calculate Fibonacci series. So it's going to be like this: public static int. So I'm going to name the method Fibonacci tab. Then as a parameter it will take n. Now here the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create array list and we are going to add the results to this array list over here. So it's going to be like this: array list with the type of integer, tb is equal to new array list integer. Then the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to add first two results to this array over here. So as you remember, in case of memoization, we said that if n is 1, it is 0, and if n is 2, it is 1. So in this case also we are going to add these conditions over here. So it's going to be like this: tb.add, I'm going to add first 0, then I'm going to add 1 over here. So based on these subproblems over here, we are going to calculate other subproblems. So as we said, in case of tabulation method, we are starting from bottom up. So in the bottom we have 0 and 1. So based on these ones, we are going to calculate our other subproblem. So after adding these two values to this array list over here, I'm going to write loop like this. So int I starts from 2, so we have added at the 0th index 0, at the index of 1 1, then the next index is 2, so that's why our loop will start from 2. Then I will continue until n-1 because here we have started from 0, and in each time it will be increased by 1. Then we are going to calculate our Fibonacci number for the based on the formula. So in the formula it says that we need to take the values with the n-1 and n-2. So here I'm just going to create a temporary variable n1 in which we are going to get the value of i-1, and in the second one we are going to get i-2. So with this we are providing the index and we are getting the value from this array list over here. Then based on these values over here, we need to calculate the next numbers Fibonacci series. So in this case it's going to be like this: tb.add, we are going to sum up these values and add them to this array list over here. Now after adding them, at the end we are going to return tb.get n-1. So in this case we are returning n-1 because it starts from 0. So that's why the first index is 0. So that's why for getting the nth Fibonacci series we need to put n-1 over here. Now with this we have calculated our Fibonacci series using tabulation approach. So in this case we are calculating first smaller problems, then we are coming to bigger problems. So this means that we are starting from the bottom and coming up. Now let's see how this is working in practice. So as you remember, we have called inside main method Fibonacci memo for 6 over here. I'm just going to call the Fibonacci tabulation for 6 over here to see that if you are getting the same result or not. So in this case it takes only one parameter. So if I run our code, now here you need to take into account that I less than equal to n-1. So before we put over here I less than n-1, so in this case you need to just correct this part. It should be I less than equal to n-1. Then if you run our code, you see that after running it's printing out to the console 5 and 5. So first 5 comes from the memoization approach and the second 5 comes from the tabulation approach. So as you can see, both approach returns the same result. So this means that it's working correct. Now with this we have come to the end of this lecture. So in this lecture we have implemented Fibonacci series in bottom-up approach using tabulation. So hopefully everything is clear about this lecture as well. So see you in the next lecture.